Hi everyone, how you doing? Nice to be here. We also have Danny, which is great. Hey Danny, how you doing?
Hi, Micol. Hi.
I hope everybody is okay and doing well. I just wanted to hop on here for a little bit to chat about the end of the residency exhibition and project. I sent you all an email, which you should have received yesterday. So you should have that all in your inbox. Please do let me know if not, so I can make sure that you do. But essentially, I just wanted to, well, first of all, just summarize what I discussed, what I had written down in the email, and also answer any questions or anything that kind of like you guys are thinking about or not sure about when it comes to the end of the residency exhibition and project. So starting with what it is and what we're doing. We This is the last, let's say, official week of the residency. So it's week 6, and it's going to be kind of like the last week of workshops and classes. We will still be, as you know, and as you've probably seen from your calendar, we will have a couple more AMAs that are going to kind of like roll over, especially for some of the ones which have been rescheduled, that are going to roll over to next week, and hopefully we'll also get a few more AMAs throughout, kind of like from here until we do the residency exhibition at the end of the month. So again, also like if you do have any additional suggestions, I did pick some of the ones that you already suggested over the last couple of weeks, like Nicolas Sassoon and a few others. But if you do have any more suggestions that you'd like to hear from, do let us know. Ping me or ping Yinga, or just put them here in the chat, and then we'll do our best to invite those people. But having said so, this kind of like marks the last week where you're actually going to have workshops and classes, and then from next week onwards, it's either only going to be a couple of AMAs, the usual lounges and kind of like Twitter spaces, and then it's full, free time to essentially work on your end of residency project. This is actually the first time that we're going to have a physical display and like a physical exhibition and event for the residency, which is super exciting because we've never done it before. We always have an exhibition which happens online, and we, have like a really nice kind of like party, and have a metaverse like experience and gallery. But this is actually the first time that we do have a IRL component to it, which is amazing. And I'm sure a lot of the past residents are super jealous about this because they always ask. So we're very happy to be able to do this. It'll take place in on the 30th and the 31st of October. So this is 30th and 31st of October of this month, which are Monday and Tuesday. So just exactly 1 to 3 weeks from now. And actually, we're going to be partnering with an event that is a digital fashion summit. Let me just post the link here so you guys can see, which is called New Codes. And essentially, it's going to take place at the Royal Institute in Mayfair. And it's bringing together quite a lot of different like speakers and people from the fashion and digital fashion industry. So it's a really, really wonderful opportunity to be able to kind of like showcase your works and what we are doing, and also the digital fashion residency as a project as a whole, in this space and at this event. The event is ticketed. However, as part of, as because we are working together with them, we'll have a set of free tickets that we'll be able to obviously give to anyone who is coming from this cohort, but also to, like people, guests that we want to invite, both from our side, from Drop, and also from your side as well. It's in London, of course. Maybe I did say that, but yeah, just making sure it's clear. It will be in London, and it's where we're going to be showcasing your projects and your final minted works. I'd like to focus. We can talk about like the event a little bit later, but actually, I'd like to focus on the final kind of like the project first. So at the end of every residency, we ask all residents who would like to. So it's not mandatory, but I would say usually like 95% of the residents do end up doing and contributing in this project to create a work, one work that is minted as an NFT that essentially showcases or in some way or form kind of like reflects on what you've been doing over the last 6 weeks and over the course of the residency. As I said in the email, we have one work per artist, so one work, one artist. And these works are going to be minted and then displayed and on the vertical.art platform. They are going to be minted on the Ethereum chain. And I just posted the link to our platform there as well. And it's kind of up to you guys what you decide to do in terms of like the nature of the work. So obviously we don't put any kind of like creative brief on the work. This is entirely up to you. But we do ask that you essentially, in some way or form, kind of like showcase any particular aspect of the residency or the last 6 weeks that we spent together. In terms of what it means to do a work or like mint a work, if any of you is not familiar with the process of minting, of having a wallet and so on and so forth, we can definitely support in that. That's not a problem. Again, do let us know if that's the case. I would imagine the majority of you have done so, and I know you have. But if there's anybody who maybe hasn't yet, just let us know, and then we can also support on that front. In terms of like important dates, the first one is obviously the 30th and 31st, which is the actual IRL event. But the even more important one is the 22nd of October. So that is the deadline for all of the works and the submission deadline for the works to be included into the exhibition. We have put this deadline as kind of like a week, let's say a little bit more than a week before, because we need this to be able to, first of all, set up the exhibition, do our catalog, which we do every time and we give out to our collectors, and to be able to make sure that kind of like all of the marketing collateral and everything is ready. So please, please, please make sure that you adhere with the deadline. If there's any late submissions or anything where you can't submit the work by the 22nd, let us know in advance and we'll try to understand if it's feasible or not to have you guys included. Obviously, we want as many people included as possible, so just bear in mind that the 22nd is the deadline and we need to make sure that everybody, or at least the majority of you, unless there's any specific reason why not, have the work ready by then. In the email, I already shared all of the instructions of what we need and what is required. But essentially, just to go over it again, we obviously need the artwork, we need the title, the description, your artist bio, price, and methodology of sale. So will it be a one of one? Will it be an edition? And so on. Usually kind of varies between these two. So it's either a one of one or it's an edition work. If you are, I know a few of you, maybe especially Johnny, you are thinking potentially of doing a Gen Art drop, short or long form, or anything along those lines. We can do that, and we can use the Artblocks engine because we work with the Artblocks engine and we have it integrated. Again, we need to kind of like know that in advance. So if you are in some shape or form thinking about doing that, let us know. In terms of like the price and kind of like how that works, We don't have a kind of like fixed, let's say, like curatorial fee or a fee that the residency takes. Historically, in the past kind of like 6 cohorts, it is up to the residents to decide how much they would like to give back to the residency wallet. It can be anything from, 20% to 30 to 40 to 50 to 100. We've had artists in the past, or a lot of residents in the past, that have decided to donate entirely the portions of their sales to the residency. Others that have decided 50%, and so on and so forth. Again, this is up to you. But we need to know about that once you submit your piece. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out. In terms of the actual work, so I know that there's been a bit of interest. I've heard from Yenga that there's a bit of interest in doing, for example, collaborations between any of you. That's amazing. It's super welcomed, and actually, it's one of the best things I think that can happen from the residency is to have collaborations between you guys. So definitely do so if you want to do a collaboration as a final piece. Essentially what that would mean is that the collaboration will be your piece for both, the 2 people or 3 people that are collaborating on the work, if that makes sense. The format, so what, in terms of like what we require for the work to be minted, it has to be under 100 megabytes. This is simply loading time and kind of like everything within the website and the ecosystem just the experience is massively better if the work is under 100 megabytes. What else? In terms of the price, so how you would like to price your work, I think this is usually like either, myself, and in this case Danny as well, obviously, would be very happy to provide any guidance or give you some sort of kind of like advice if you're unsure or if you don't know on what that would look like. Ideally, obviously, we want the works to be collected. First of all, we want the works to kind of like be going in the hands of collectors and network and people that as many people as possible. So I would keep that in mind when you're deciding what sort of pricing you would like to do and you would like to have for your works. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you kind of like have to like price them like super high or super low, but just kind of like taking into consideration the market that we're in, the fact that it's always better to have a work, I think, collected than not, and just kind of like these different factors. Again, very happy to talk, kind of chat about it, give guidance, and provide some sort of like advice on that. Danny, would you like to add anything on this? Because I know you also need to hop pretty soon.
You know, I think you covered everything. As Micol said, I have mentoring slots with quite a few of you this week and next week, which I'm super excited about. I will be traveling from the 20th for a little bit, so it will be slightly harder to get hold of me in terms of mentoring sessions. But please just send me an email, send me a DM if anybody wants views on their work or views. I didn't say I necessarily can give the best kind of critiques of work, but really around how to market it, maybe how to describe it, how to package it, and also around pricing. Anything I can do there and any feedback that would be helpful, it's my absolute pleasure. And I also just wanted to say, from what I've been seeing on Lens, I really could not be more excited about the level of creativity and variety and just the stories and the names behind even the process pieces of work. And so I don't really think those of you whose work I've seen really need that much steer. But if there's anything I can do to be helpful, it's my absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and actually on that note of Lens, good good reminder and good point, Danny. We will be sending out some further communication around kind of like what we would like you guys to post on Lens about this. Obviously, the work will not be minted on Lens, but we will ask for you to post BTS, whips, and kind of like the making of these final projects on the Lens ecosystem. Similarly to like what happened last week, where we obviously had a really amazing like takeover, and I think it was awesome, to be honest. I loved it. But yeah, we will be kind of like sending out a little bit of communication on what that looks like specifically for the Lens ecosystem and how we would like to approach that. So the final piece will be minted on a Vertical site, but we will ask for some like BTS and whips and kind of like making ofs to be posted as collectible posts on the Lens ecosystem. I'm going to stop here because I think it would be good to just address any questions or any thoughts and kind of like things that you guys are thinking about since we have time together. I'll just go briefly into the chat to see who had some questions. So, Janart, is there any deadline to let you know? Yeah, Ying already replied. ASAP, realistically. I mean, it doesn't have to be now, today, but probably by the end of this week would be ideal. Especially because if you are thinking about doing a project with the Artblocks engine, then we just need to kind of like set it up and put you in touch with our team and do a little bit more of like technical kind of like testing, essentially. Joyce, you didn't receive the email, but then you found it. Great. Kay, yes, definitely. We'll send it over. Will the minting be directly on the Vertical site? Because my country is blocked on OpenSea and I might get banned if I try to mint there. Yes, the minting will be on Vertical. It will not be on OpenSea, and we have our own minting contracts. So it will be directly on there. No, so as I just mentioned, Micah, yes, good question. So we have our own contracts. So the pieces are minted on Ethereum, yes, but they're not listed through Manifold. It's listed through Vertical.art, but they do show up in all of the major, like general kind of like marketplaces, essentially. OpenSea, Blur, and the likes. Do you know if you can mint an application X directory piece on vertical.art? I truly have no idea, Micah, but I will ask our tech team and see what they say. Let me just do that now and see if I can get a reply live. 1 second. And also, guys, feel free to unmute if anybody wants to ask. Like yeah, or if you don't, that's also fine. But yeah. Are there any limitations regarding mediums, duration, size? So there's no limitation of sorts in terms of mediums. Actually, one thing that is important to mention, I did mention it in the email as well, around physicals. So if you are thinking of like doing some sort of physical kind of counterpart, or if anything that is regarding a physical artifact, let's say, that's fine. But in terms of like shipping, kind of like having it in London or shipping it to any of the collectors, that is up to you guys, and kind of like has to be managed entirely by you. In terms of other sizes, just as I mentioned before and in the email, it's around, we require for the work to be under 100 megabytes. So I just received the reply, Micah. It should be okay, but if you could send an example, then that would be great, and I can just send it over to the team, and they'll just make sure that they can triple check that that's possible. Are editions equal to curated long form collection, or is it only if it's the exact same piece? So editions are usually like 1 of 50, and then kind of like a curated long form, it'll be like 1 of 20, and both are fine. So we can support both. So if you're thinking, to have like 20 unique pieces that are not, let's say, like generated on Mint, for example, then that's also fine. That's kind of what we did. The last exhibition that we just closed, Femgen, was mainly curated long forms, or short forms, I would say, more than long forms. Should I? I was designing more than one piece, so should I approach as a mint pass kind of direction or pick one? Pick one.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify something quickly. I got confused when you were saying additions 20 and then one and then physical. So I'm like I'm a bit frazzled as to what that means. Maybe I don't understand the language around it, if you care to explain.
Yeah. What do you mean exactly?
Earlier you were talking about additions, one of one, but 20 pieces. I got confused as to what maybe I don't understand what you were talking
Oh,
about. I
okay.
don't.
So it's basically like a 1 of 1 is a one work that is either kind of like auctioned or it has a fixed price.
Yeah.
And then an edition is, for example, like 20 editions of that same work that are then collected by whoever kind of
Okay.
like
So
decides to collect. And
so it's
then
20 of the same thing.
exactly.
Oh,
And
okay.
then what Johnny was asking was, are editions equals to a curated long form, which is more like, because it's generative, then every piece is unique. And so that would be like a 1 of 20. And then each piece is like, each 20 pieces are unique, essentially, if that makes sense.
Okay. So each edition is I guess yeah,
Yeah, but
each
that's
go
usually
on.
it's if it's just created with code, essentially. Like
Okay.
that is the process. Yeah.
Okay. And then if you are having a physical item and then you wanted like a minted version of the physical, does that count as two or one thing?
In my view, it counts as one. So, the person that kind of like gets the one then gets the physical. I would see it that way at least. But
Okay,
Danny, I
great.
don't know if you have thoughts on that as well.
I would also count it as one thing, and the reason that I would count it as one thing is what you're basically implying is if you don't own the digital work or buy the work digitally, you can't have the physical. So what you can do is you can basically say this digital work corresponds also to a physical, and the physical doesn't have to even look the same, but they're buying one thing that is a package together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
And also, I think just to also be clear, these are all options. So there are also, I think Micol is seeing the variety of things you can do. None of this is mandatory. You don't have to make a physical. You obviously have to make something, but I think Micol is laying out the different forms these works can take. And Micol, we can also send an email summarizing everything. It's extra clarity
Yeah.
with some examples of what an edition would look like versus physical.
Yeah. For example, like um, if you look at like this work, I'm just gonna link it here. Um, this is like an edition of 10, and all of them are the same. Um, if you look at, for example, this work, this is an edition of 24, like 1 of 24, and all of them are different. So this is what I would consider, well, not I, it's considered curated short form. And then if we look at this, it's a 1 of 1. In terms of like again, like I'm just saying physicals because I heard from Yinga that a few of you are thinking about it. But it doesn't have to, like there's no, it's just like something that kind of like was brought up, but there's no like reason for anybody to create a physical if that's not what you're thinking of doing, like 100%. So yeah, I'm just kind of like laying out the potential possibilities that you might want to do. Could it be ready? Could it be AR ready or VRM? Yeah, I think was it the same question as Micah? Or was it, or is it different? If so, can you just, if not, just to make it easier, can you just send an example of what you mean? And then I can ask, and we can sort it out that way. I'm waiting for some people typing. But in the meantime, is anything else or anybody that has any more questions? Since we have an option, I imagine the one-on-ones will have to be a buy now. So Celine, they don't have to be a buy now actually. You can choose. They can be a buy now or they can be an auction. Actually, historically, we've kind of always done auctions for the residency, and they've always been really great because it's kind of like all consolidated in like 24 hours. So we do like 24 hours of sale kind of like period. And so all of the works have those 24 hours essentially to be collected and seen, and it brings a lot actually more attention to the works and to the collections rather than having them kind of like stay there with like no real ending. And it's also what we did, recently with FemGen. So we work on this model of kind of like 24 hours, usually 24 hour sales. So auctions work really well for that as well. Yeah, centralize. If you could send like an example, so I can just send it to our tech team because they need like a visual example essentially to be able to see if they can support it or not, and to see what the actual coding, if there is any coding required to be able to have that. So if you could send a link, for example, that would be great. Mica, probably not, unfortunately, because actually the screens that we have are two screens, and they are not, there's no interactivity to them, unfortunately. So they can run anything from like a computer browser. So they can act as a computer, so they can run like a browser link, but there's, yeah, the interactivity part will be a bit tough. Adori, yeah, of course. I mean, just to give you an idea, just to make sure that you guys see how the works will look like. This is like a page of a work that was just recently sold. And as you can see, you have the artwork, and then you have like the curator note, which includes like the description of the work, the artist bio, and anything that you want to include there is essentially, yours to decide. That's why we require all of this information before, so that we can put it into the platform and make sure that, yeah, it kind of like people have context as to what they're seeing. So definitely. Yeah, and actually we yeah, seen it and already sent it, so I'll let you know soon enough. Um, we really like encourage even the descriptions and like the bios to be as let's say kind of like compelling as possible. Um, I'm very happy to, look over them as well. Like if you're a bit unsure on what you want to write and so on, like we kind of did this exercise with the artist bios already, because we posted, well, we still need to post a few, but you kind of like did this exercise too. But even with the descriptions of the work, like it's always good to give context to people as to what they're seeing and what they're looking at. Especially when you're doing a sale. We actually always even send a catalog through to all of our collectors, so they have like all of the works that are going to be exhibited and sold beforehand as well. So yeah, that's a big part of like the description, and the kind of like the curatorial aspect is a big part of why we also have all of this kind of like time in advance before the event and before the sale. No, no, unfortunately, Nathan, they can't. As I said before to Micah, we essentially have like two screens that are going to be displaying the works in obviously like in a kind of like a loop, so in different formats, and but we don't have like the option to have any let's say like mouse or interactivity. It's more kind of like an exhibition base. Um, what we do have, though, that I have not mentioned is the event will have like a hologram, and there is a possibility if anybody wanted. I'm not technical at all, so I need to understand better how it would work. Probably you guys know better than me. But if you have the possibility essentially or want to display the work in the hologram, then that is an option, yes. Um, yeah, I have sent them both through, both the Mona one and Drop, so I will let you know. Yes, yes, I need to find that out myself. We're still kind of like discussing with the event partners. So whenever I have that information, I can send it out. Yes, you will do. Great question, actually. Sorry, this is something that I haven't addressed. So the minting will be done by you guys, but it will be supported by our team. So Phil, who you've spoken to before, actually, and Kiki, who is also part of our tech team, will be helping you with all of the minting. We will send minting instructions closer to the date, not now because it's kind of like not needed right now, but closer to the final kind of like submission date. That week we will send all of the minting instructions. And Yenga will also be sending out a form where basically you will be able to complete and give information on what is your work, what are you thinking of doing, will it be a one of one, will it be an edition, will it be long form, etc. We need this information, let's say, as soon as possible. So you don't need to submit the form you don't have to have the final work to be able to submit the form. You can submit the form with the information that you have now, and then you can further kind of like add all of the rest of the information when you have it. But yeah, in terms of like the dynamics of the work, like if it's a one of one, if it's an edition, if it's Art Block's engine project, we kind of need that information to be able to then send you the minting instructions, essentially, because all of them are different depending on what you're doing. But having said so, like, guys, it's all really simple. No, like, our team is like fully on hands on deck. They'll guide you through every step of the way. If you have any issues, you can hop on a call with Phil, and he'll gladly go over them with all of you. So it's like super easy, and we're here to help. So yeah, we've done it so many times, and it's always been pretty smooth. And if it's not smooth, we'll smooth it out for you guys. Yeah, as Yenga said, they've been tested and trialed by the past cohorts. So you should be good to go on that. Yeah, wherever you want. If you want, yeah, Discord, Twitter, email. Um, I would say like email and Discord is probably the best, because Twitter is a bit messy sometimes. But yeah, if usually like just if even if you're kind of like you can't add me as a friend, because I have my things blocked because of spam. Just ping me here and say, hey, I just added you as a friend, or so that we can chat, or email as well. And everybody should have my email. But in case you don't, I'm gonna put it here. I'm also gonna put my Twitter, and then Discord is this one. The promo material is, we don't have anything now. We usually recommend to start kind of like, we usually do the promotion of the sale, let's say like a week or 10 days before, because the attention span of this space is very, very limited. So we don't want to start too early, because then people forget. But we've already, said and kind of like communicated that there is a final exhibition and auction. So people know that already, because we do it every single time that we end a residency. But in terms of like actually, let's say like saying, we're doing this, it's happening these dates. It's going to be let's say like towards mid-November, mid-October, probably like 10 days before or so. Having said so, what we recommend and always recommend is, people love to see whips, work in progress, BTS, things that you're working on. I think, like, as I said, it's like this week is the end of the residency classes and workshops. So from next week onwards, it's the perfect time to actually start sharing on social media that you are working on your project, that this is what you're kind of like thinking about, that this is maybe like a couple of like snippets, or like kind of like ideas that you're working on. Like, all of that is perfect. So feel free to start doing that as soon as early as you wish and please. Always, if you want, obviously, for us to be able to like retweet and share, we always retweet and share it. So please tag Drop, tag the residency account, so that we can make sure that we get it in our notifications, and that we share it and amplify all of that. The actual one thing that I did not mention is that we're going to actually like specifically send you another email with when the actual like 24 hours of the sale will start. Usually we don't like to do sales during an event, because people sometimes are at the event, and then it's like they can't collect because they're at the event, and so like they kind of like lose the minting time, or like the collecting time. So we try to always like do the event, that's 30th and 31st, and then have the sale afterwards. This is historically how we've kind of always done it with Vertical, and it's worked really, really well. So probably the sale itself, so the exhibition will be the 30th and the 31st. Probably the actual sale in the 24-hour collecting period will be like the 1st of November, the day after. but we'll define exactly what that date is, and we'll send it via email as well. This doesn't change any of the kind of like submissions or anything. Like all of the work needs to be on the deadline on the 22nd. No, so the pieces are not going to be a timed auction. They are all up to you to decide whether it's an edition or an auction. But what we do is that we do like a 24-hour collecting period. Essentially, what that means is that all of the works will be open to collecting for the duration of those 24 hours. Let's say we start the sale today at 6 p.m., so in 15 minutes, then we end the collecting period tomorrow at the same time. This is both for auctions that can be 24 hours or even for editions. The reason why we do this is to consolidate and kind of like push the sale all together, cumulatively and collectively, and give a bit of urgency and kind of like sense of urgency to the people to say this is happening today from X date to X date, and you need to be able to, if you want the works, you need to collect them now. Having said that, we always, as I said before, send out a sales catalog. All of our kind of like network of collectors, of artists, of residency mentors. So everybody that kind of like has been both part of this residency, but is also kind of like in our overall like vertical and drop like ecosystem. And so they have the opportunity, if they want to, with some of the editions works, to reserve, kind of like say, I want that work, and they can reserve it in advance, and we will grant them that opportunity to be able to collect it before the kind of like the public sale goes live. This is obviously only for edition work. With the one-of-ones, or like with the auctions, that can't happen, because if you have an auction, then it will start and end. It will start a day and it will end the other day. Having said so, no option is better than the other. It's mainly what you want to do and what you feel is most right for your work, essentially. And auctions, honestly, usually have worked pretty well, to be honest. But again, it's a one, so it depends. It essentially depends on the nature of your work. So I would recommend, because everybody's different, to, if you have any questions around this, just simply like DM me and we can talk about it. I think it's probably easiest, because me saying this, then maybe people think, oh, I should do a one-of-one. But actually, if you're like, if you're doing a generative collection, then you definitely, shouldn't be doing a one-of-one. You should probably be doing a short form, or, editions and so on. So it's really dependent on your work and on your practice and on the nature of what you want to do as your final project. How long will the minting process take? That depends, I guess, but usually it's quite fast. It depends on if you have any specific kind of like issues with the minting or not, but it can take anything from like 5 minutes to, I don't know, half an hour. Shouldn't take very long. After a 24-hour collecting period, after 24 hours, that collecting period is ended, and then you have the option to kind of like do what you wish and please with the works. They can be sent back to you guys, and then you can see, whether you want to, maybe, for example, last year, a lot of the residents, the ones who didn't kind of like the editions that didn't sell out or weren't collected, they were airdropped to like the rest of the residents or some of the mentors, or they were then kind of like kept into the artist wallets, and they decided what to do with them. So it's totally up to you. We don't like own the pieces, the pieces are yours, so you can do whatever you want. Yes, absolutely. Secondary sales are, you can set them up during the minting, and that is up to you. to decide how much of a percentage you want to put as a secondary sale. We do not take secondary sales unless anybody wants to add the residency wallet as a secondary sale recipient. That is fine, but as you know, it's up to you guys. Yeah, we don't take that usually. We recommend specific percentage of secondary sales, which is like 5 to max 10%. Yeah. Again, like secondary royalties are a bit hard. It's kind of a tricky subject at the moment because not every platform honors the royalties. So obviously, if you can put them, but it's not a guarantee that if the work then gets sold on OpenSea, maybe the collector will not honor the royalties. But if they do, then that's great. We obviously do, so you can set them up. So if it does end up getting resold on secondary on Vertical, then yeah, but we cannot control other platforms, of course. Yeah, they are at the moment. Very tricky. And for the art blocks engine, so any project that is that we mint via the art blocks engine will also show up on Sansa, which is a secondary marketplace for essentially like generative art. Probably one thing that I knew I had forgotten something in the email. So I will just send a follow-up again with this collecting period, uh, kind of like thing that I just mentioned. So the 24 hours, so that you all have it in the email as well, so that everything is kind of like in one place. Any other questions or thoughts or anything at all? It's very exciting, by the way, that we're doing an IRL exhibition. I'm super excited about it. And actually, it's great that we have a digital fashion summit that is happening on the same dates. We didn't know about it, so it's completely casual that we decided to do the event on those dates and then kind of found out that there is a really big event in London on digital fashion, which is great. It's like the stars have aligned. So that's awesome because a lot of people will be in town for it actually. And yeah, and also Yinga will be sending out the form, and the form will also ask you if you will be in town. So if you will be in London, I know some of you are based in London, but others might be thinking of traveling here. But yeah, if you are, do let us know because there might be also like an opportunity for us to do like a talk, so a panel, and we would love to obviously get as many of you like included in that as well. Cool. Okay, so if you come up with any questions, also like you don't have to ask them now. We're here, me, Yinga, Danny. We're all here to answer your questions or just kind of like chat. As I said, feel free to DM me with any related kind of like drop or anything that you want to ask. Basically, I'm very happy to be hopping on any calls or just kind of like chatting with you guys about it. But yeah, I'll be actually sending up a follow-up email soon tonight with some more kind of like information of what I just talked about here. This is recorded again, so obviously you can also just kind of like re-listen to the recording, but if not, just ping me and ask me any questions about it. And or Yinga as well, she knows everything that is going on, so if I'm not replying straight away, definitely Yinga will be. And yeah, I would say that's I didn't mention actually, but we always basically do like Twitter Spaces before we kind of like open the sale. So that will definitely happen as soon as we decide the exact date. It'll probably be the 1st of November that we do the date to be the sale, to be honest. So we'll be sending out calendar invites for the Twitter Spaces so that all of you obviously speak about your work and present your work. I do definitely recommend also like joining the open mics that we're doing this week. It's going to be on Friday. Actually, Yinga, we need to change the time for that. I wanted to do it right after the AMA that you guys have with Nicholas Sassoon, so we can get as many people as possible attending. So that you can hop straight from the AMA into the open mic and Twitter Spaces. I know sometimes it can be a bit daunting to speak on like Twitter Spaces, but it's super helpful. It's a really good exercise, and yeah, we've kind of like spoken to a few of you. I think sometimes it's a bit late for those of you who are in Asia, so we want to do it a bit earlier, and yeah, that's been moved already. Perfect. Thank you, Yinga. So hopefully I can see some of you there. And then, yeah, it's also a good opportunity to just talk about like your work and what you're doing and so on. Perfect. Cool. Great to speak to you guys. As I said, always available. Hope you enjoy your last week of classes and workshops. Please do let me know. I know, okay, I'm so sorry about that. Please do let me know if you have anybody else that you would really like to speak to in the next kind of like 3 weeks that we have, together, because yeah, the workshops end, but we still want to keep the AMAs going. I did, let's say, like look at all of your suggestions. Some of the suggestions we couldn't get to, people are not available, but as many as we can, we will be able to, we will try our best to get them to do an AMA. So just keep the suggestions coming. And any classes as well, like if you have any specific topic that you really want to dig deep into that you haven't had the chance to, again, we'll really try and like do our best to address that. Oh, and you'll also be receiving a request for your addresses, like your physical addresses, where you live or where you want anything to be shipped to. This is for ledgers, so we'll be sending out ledgers to all of you. So unless it's been done already, but you'll get that. It doesn't have to be, if you don't want to share your address, that's fine. Just send like a PO box or wherever you usually receive packages, essentially. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day or evening, and yeah, we'll chat soon. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.